Hey, good morning, folks. Welcome. Happy Sunday morning. Hope you are doing well. I am. I don't look it, but I've been awake for a long time this morning already. Just tired face. It's been a long week. Thank you for understanding my absence Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of this week. And if you didn't understand it, that's okay. Um, I just took a little bit of time off. Just needed it. So thanks for being here this morning. And what have I got to say? Those of you who are new to this program, this is not the Intrepid radio program here on Sunday mornings. This is just the more casual, informal Sunday morning show where we can have our coffee, we can talk about junk, and we can get our shit stirred a little bit and maybe talk about other fun stuff as well. So today, as you can imagine, because it is wait, before I get started, I just got to take a sip of my coffee. I've got my iced coffee this morning. Mm. It's so easy to make. I brew it earlier in the week, or well, a day ago, and then I refrigerate it and put it on ice, put a little cream in it. Excellent. If you haven't tried it, it's good on these hot days. And even though I'm wearing a hoodie, it is hot here. Not as hot today as it was yesterday. It's extremely humid yesterday. And today it's a little cooler outside, which is nice. Cooler being a relative term, cooler than yesterday. And so, boy, I've got my lights set up all differently. I hope I'm not just burning out my exceedingly growing forehead is now very lit by the hot lights up there. But down here in the studio, it is freezing. And our master bedroom is down here as well, over on the other side of that wall. And so down here, it's really cold. And so I'm constantly, I put on sweatshirts and then I go outside to run to the store or the gas station or something. And I got to change shirts because it's so cold down here. I almost have it. Last night, I had the heater on. Now, we have the air conditioning on, yes, and it makes it upstairs. The living area of the house is very comfortable. Down here, though, whenever it's comfortable up there, it almost borderline 72, 73 degrees upstairs. It's like 60, 65 degrees down here because we're underground. So that's why I've got my hoodie on despite it being warm out. My two sons went off to the Renaissance Festival today. If you look over at my Instagram page or my Facebook, you'll see Sam in his new Cavalier outfit. Now, the Musketeers, you think of the Three Musketeers, they're a little later in history than the Renaissance by about 100 years. But what's kind of cool about it is they wear their Renaissance costumes and they throw on those blue cassocks with the cross and the fleur de lis on it. And so Sam is all done up in his finery this morning. Flynn in his. I did not get a picture of Flynn because Sam came and picked him up last night and he stayed over at Sam's house. But Sam was here and came and brought his costume along because he wanted me to take a couple of pictures. So I did a couple of pictures of Sam and in his new outfit. And part of this, some of it is Uncle Dave's stuff that he inherited from Uncle Dave. And he's wearing an old black doublet of mine from, God, almost 30 years ago. And the doublet is, if you don't know, that's the vest. This one happens to be a wool vest, and he's wearing some of my old stuff that he got. And I'll show you a couple of pictures as we go on here. But that's fun. That's what Sam's up to today, and that's what Flynn is up to. They wanted me to go today, and I'm like, it's been so hot and humid. I'm like, you know what? I'm not young like I used to be, where we would get into all this get up and this gear and go out in the heat. Just doesn't do it for me anymore. Of course, you got your warmer weather costumes that you could do. And, I hate calling them costumes, and I've talked about this before, because it's not really costuming. Some of it is, but a lot of it is just it's historical period era clothing. And some of this stuff is made to be pretty supreme. That's not the word I wanted to use. Superior quality clothing that you would have seen in the day. Here's Sam, by the way, in his cavalier get up. I'm going to take off that lower brand there. There you go. And there's Sam in that. And that's in his new cassock. He's got my old black doublet on. That's the vest looking piece. And so there he is in that. And I didn't get a picture of Flynn this morning because he wasn't here. So it's my opportunity just to show you that if you've got pictures of yourself at your Renaissance Festival, you can bring them in and I'll put them up. Or if you got pictures of other things, boy, that just brought back a quick flashback of that one morning where it was lingerie day on It's Sunday. I still have a whole file folder full of your pictures. So if that sounds creepy, it's not, because everybody was involved just about. Except Roger Rabbit. Roger, we did not get you in your slinky lingerie. So it just one thing went to another. It started with Speedos. We were talking about Speedos, and then swimsuits, and then it went to lingerie. And anyway, there you go. Makes me wonder where Steph Cuervo Queen is this morning. If you're out there, good morning. So Elderberry, good to see you too. Yeah, them 3 hairs don't cover the skull like they used to. On me, yeah, ain't that truth. Yeah, that was a great day, Roger Rabbit. Everyone was sending in pics. I never got my banana hammock pic sent in. Well, you still have time. You still have time. I want to say hey to James McMichael. I think he just popped in over on the Instagram page. I'm not sure, but I think he's there. And no, I don't see him. He said he sent me a message somewhere. If you're listening, James, good to see you here this morning. And so yeah, that was a great day. It was maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but that was a lot of fun. It was impromptu. So field guy, ladies, get in here and dance. There went our ladies audience. So how is everybody today? Who else is here? Saw Roger Rabbit, Luke Acord. Good to see you this morning, Luke. Luke says, good morning. Luke is a historian, a teacher. He did the rendezvous circuit, not with us, but at the same places we would go. And Luke, you gotta refresh my memory if you're still sitting there. I don't remember the character you played, but it was kind of French and Indian to Revolutionary War era. These rendezvous we do with the red-coated 42nd Royal Highlanders. And Luke was always a big presence there. And he did some ghost hunting with us, too. And so there's, you can see his picture down there and his good morning. So who else we got showing up in the chat room? There's a whole lot of you here. Oh, there's JP. Jason is here calling me cute again. Jason, I know. I'll try to take that with humility. I appreciate it. So let's see. Go Chiefs says go Chefs. Go, there it is. Go Chefs. I'm all for that. Cook me some breakfast. Go Chefs. And Elderberry's here as well. There he is. I got some more stuff for you to see soon. So probably tomorrow morning. And let's see. I'm just looking for everybody else. There you go. Come on in. If you're sitting out there, and I can see by my own numbers, there's a whole lot of you out there. If you want to come into the chat room, come on in. We can chat. Remember, everybody, Sunday mornings is just the casual part of this show. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is Intrepid Radio, where we get down and dig in a little deeper on stuff. Sunday mornings is for just kicking back having a little coffee, talking about what's going on. You can call into this show at any time you want to, because unlike Monday, Wednesday, Friday, where I've got it a little more formatted for like the first hour ish is the show, and then you can start calling in for the second hour, which is the captain's cabin, or the second half hour, as it may be some nights because I go long. But here is the call in. If you want to call into this show, you can come on camera. You will come on camera either way. It's either your camera will be off and we just pick up your sound and we won't see your face, or you can come in and show your face. It's all right. I'm showing mine. Look at mine. Mine's nothing to shake a stick at this morning. So, by the way, here's the other picture of Sam. That's the back of the cassock that he's wearing, and it's got kind of two open sleeves, as you can tell by here. Here's his first picture again. You can see the open sleeve where his arm on the right side is coming out, but they hang down on both sides. But then it's just like that on the other side. It was so they could, manage their swords and daggers. But he wears it over one shoulder and ties it with the big. He's got a big, thick brocaded silver cord. It's kind of silver fabric, and also, hey, Rudy, how you doing, Rudy? You're not at the festival this morning. Are you out at Minnesota anymore? I know you do Texas and down there and stuff all over the place. But seeing as you're right here, I'm assuming you were not at festival. And Rudy, only you will understand this in the audience that I see in the chat room. When you've done festival for years, Minnesota Renaissance Festival up here, I remember that first year I didn't go. And I had been going for about 15 years-ish, maybe less than that officially as official part of the cast. And then after Rainey and I were together, Rainey said to me, she said, this would be 2006, the 2006 season. She said, I don't want you to go out there this year. And I was like, why? And she said, well, festival, it's all about sex, drugs, and alcohol. And I said, no, it's not. Well, yeah, but it's about, the entertaining and the acting and the theater. I really enjoyed that part of it, but she didn't want us to go anymore, so we didn't. And I remember on Saturday morning, sitting on the front step of her house. She owned a house too. At that time, we had two houses at that time. And I'm sitting on the front step of her house, and we're having coffee, and I'm looking at my phone. I said, well, it's 9:00. Morning cannon just went off to open the gates. And here we sit. That was the way it felt. And Rudy, I don't know if you ever, you're not, Rudy says, no, he's not at the fest up here anymore. So, but that's when you retire out or get out, or you stop going, you stop doing it. So why does Mr. Al Cohol always get a raw deal? I don't know. I think, we had our times where it was, the alcohol was a little bit free flowing. And I had my bouts out there, but it was after hours. It was not during show hours. There was only one time I had too much to drink during show hours, which was banned. If you were on cast, you were not allowed to drink during the show hours. And if you did, but everybody carried a flask though. And I think, let me look at this other picture again. Sam's got you see right here on his belt, there's this little round piece that's sticking out under the blue cassock. That was my blue leather flask. And we'd always fill that with Kool-Aid. And so everybody carried them. It was part of everybody's costume, but we weren't allowed to drink. And there was only one time I did, and I got hammered. So while I was during show, but I performed just fine. Rudy says, I did MRF for 26 years. I quit when my wife had cancer. I really miss our relationships we've gotten out there. Yeah, me too, Rudy. One thing I have noticed, Rudy, is because it's been so many years now, It's been almost 20 years since I was out there on cast. You know, guys, that seems like a long time for the memories I speak about having, but having put in 15 plus years in total out there, then it made such a huge it was a huge impact on who I am, on my life, on the way I do things, on the way I present myself, because festival wasn't just the 7 weekends in the summer and the early fall. It was the whole year. You'd have a take off a couple of months. Like when we did 10 Seconds of Harmony, a group that we had out there, it wasn't our main show, but we were known for that. But we had all these roles that we all did. We 5 that were part of 10 Seconds of Harmony. But we did 2 shows a day near the end of the day, 5:30 and it was like 4:30 and 6:00, something like that. And so when we wanted to do that, when we were doing that show, we started rehearsals in January for the opening in August. So this is the opening weekend this weekend. So that's what we did. And yeah, Rudy, I know what you mean. I miss all the friendships out there, but now there's like a younger set out there because it's been enough years where there's kind of that new wave comes in. They don't even know who you are. And if you look at the way, no offense to young people, but you look at the way younger people talk to you on social media, either talking to you or talking to you about politics or all of that kind of thing. You know what I'm going to say here next is that social interaction has really changed over the last 20 years, or nearly 20 years since I was out there. And the same kind of thing that you find with the way people are in social media is the way they all are in social media on every topic. So there's a lot more rudeness. There's no respect for anybody. And maybe I'm talking like an old man when I say that, but that's bothersome to me, is that there is not the respect. There's not the decency. If somebody disagrees with you, say on the Renaissance Festival site there where you can chat and all that, their Facebook page, man, they are just nasty, and it's a bandwagon, and the whole spirit of the place has changed because of that. The whole shifting of the guard to a new way of thinking and doing things and interacting, it's all different now. And so it's kind of sad. And Rudy, I don't know if you, oh yeah, Rudy says, I keep getting called old man. Not sure if I should be offended or feel complimented. Yeah. And he says the actual good friendships we got out there, we still stay in touch with, which I find is really cool. And yeah, it became a tradition. Isn't that the truth? And you start breaking your lifelong traditions. Rudy, you're a little younger than me, I believe. So if you put in 26 years at the Renaissance Festival out there, I don't know when you quit doing Minnesota, but when I stopped doing it, I was 45. I was 45 years old when I stopped doing festival. So, hey, Unleash Jeremy Henson. Yeah, the owner did have a lot to do with that. I agree with you. And I'm surprised he's still around. He was an old dude back when I was there. So, and the owner of the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, by the way, was one of the partners of people that actually started the big Renaissance festivals. If you can think of, you remember the old, this was not the same people, but you remember the old Simon and Garfunkel song, Are You Going to Scarborough Fair? There's Scarborough Fair down in Texas. That song came out when? In the late 60s, early 70s? That's when the Minnesota Festival started, I think, in 70 or 72. And then the owners kind of split up, and one of them went down to Texas and started Texas Renaissance Festival, which is one of the big ones down there. Rapid Dog says, everybody's going to get old, so take advantage of the benefits of getting old. Like, don't expect me to do heavy lifting. Yeah. Rudy started in 92 at the festival. And I was I was mid 90s when I first went on cast out there. So, but I was from mid 80s, I was out there. And mid 90s, early to mid 90s, I can't remember the year even, I started on cast. So, yeah, no, George from Texas Renaissance Festival made that goofy ass movie, which reflects a lot of the wrong misinterpretation. That's right. There is a Renaissance Festival movie that's like a documentary that is really good in the sense that it was made and it was done well. But the guy who helped start the Renaissance Festival thing back in the early 70s made it look really goofy, and the movie upholds all the stereotypes that people think about Renaissance Festival and Renaissance Festival people. Now, there are some, let me say this, there are some people that do the Renaissance festivals that are the younger set more, and they're into it, but they're so into it, they spend the year making new costumes and working up new bits, just like we did with our group 10 Seconds of Harmony. And but at the same time, I knew a lot of people, and a lot of my friends out there were people that were also business people, entrepreneurs. They owned businesses, they had a life beyond the festival, but they were still as invested in their characters and the festival and things like that. So you had your kind of your different cast of people out there. It seemed that Rennies, we call them earlier, they're almost like carnies. I'm not talking about the people who own their booths and the merchants and the crafters. They were a different set altogether, because this is what they did. It was their arts and crafts, their art, their everything from, think of pottery and painting and making things and scarves and the hats and feather and jewelry. That's all out there. But at the same time, you had your Rennies, which were your kind of weird cast of people. And by weird, I mean, how do you describe it? Groupies, Rennies. Their boots cost more money than their cars that they held together with Band-Aids and gum. That's kind of the way that was out there, for good or bad. So, let's see. I'm looking for something here while I'm talking. So you had, your different sets of people, and I think Rudy, you'll understand the difference as well. Rudy and I were also part of a couple of groups on the side outside of the festival that were more historically oriented. The 42nd Royal Highlanders. Rudy, were you ever part of Clan Tartan? We did the 1600s, the Scots fighting in the wars with Gustavus Adolphus, and we went and did shows and things like that. So, there was that. And I am looking for something in particular to see if I can show you the difference of something here. See if I've got it in here anymore. Maybe not. We have transferred it somewhere. That's okay. So I'm not going to worry about it. But Jeremy said, I always thought these people were historical hippies. Yeah, it's kind of a good way to put it, Jeremy. Some of them don't know history from their ass or their elbow in a hole in the ground. They don't know the difference. They do it to be fun. And you know what? I don't knock it, because many of them just do it for fun. And I wasn't a purist, but at the same time, I enjoyed the historical aspects of the kinds of characters we made. And we made comedy out of it, is what we did. We didn't have just surly, dark, brooding characters out there out of history. We may have grabbed a historical name and used it. Like, I had two characters. When I was Royal Guard, I was Martin Frobisher. That was my character. And Martin Frobisher was a real guy in Elizabethan England. And then I had when I became the king's sidekick or the prince's sidekick, and eventually the king when he went up to be king. I was Edmund Scroop, the fictional Duke of Abergavenny, Wales, and I'd say my banner was thrice a cousin, thrice a noble, thrice removed from the throne. Meaning about 20 people would have to die before I got in charge or ascended to the throne. So, but we had fun of it. I was Edmund Scroop, the Master of Horse for His Royal Highness Prince Philip, and then he became the king when the old king retired out, and I became kind of the same character. So it was kind of fun. Uh, let's see. Some of these Rennies just travel the circuit because they want to all be doped up in a free ride. Yeah, that's true. There is truth to that. And they were, as Jeremy Hansen said about the hippies, a lot of them were kind of pseudo-historical hippies. I was not part of Clan Tartan. I did do a few shows there. I was a worm on cannon duty. I like to show off the missing thumb. And there you go. Yeah, Rudy was our banner carrier in the Royal Regiment, in the Highland Regiment, and he'd carry the flag, but he has one hand where he's missing a thumb, and so I don't know if that prevented you from doing certain things, the muskets or whatever. I don't know exactly, but I remember when you came on, you said, I can carry the flag. So that's what he did for us when we marched. So anyway, folks, that's Renaissance Festival talk. Not everybody is into that. So we're not going to stay on that for very much longer. Just talking about some of the stuff that we do out there, what we did out there, and how many of us don't do that anymore. And some of it is, remember when I went out and I showed you some pictures from about 3 weeks ago? I went out when Rainey was at camp with Rowan before they went to Alaska, and Flynn and Ellery and Sam and his girlfriend Octavia, Tav, we all went out, and it was broiling hot and like under the water humid. And me nowadays, I was just like, we'll saunter out at Fest in our costumes from one pool of shade to the next. So, the ad lib to these characters Rudy brings on, yes, was just hilarious. We had a great time doing it and playing with the patrons. That's exactly it, Rudy. That's what we did. We had to create sometimes these enormous characters that nobody really saw those backstories. We created the backstory so we could make plausible characters on the street. And we entertained by doing impromptu theater, street theater. And it was fun. It was funny and comic. We kept it comic so that it was something everybody wanted to see. And we'd just walk around as part of the village and people were there. And so we had a good time with that. And, many times you didn't, there was no reason to bring up a backstory. Well, let me tell you about Martin Frobisher and where he was born in Northumbria. And, I used to say Martin Frobisher by way of Northumbria was my character. And Jason, I got you on here and notice, and you like something. So, we had a great time with all of that. That's what we did. And, my friend Carr had written some books and was doing a touring show where he was doing business management, and companies would bring him in. It's like, I remember the big cool one. He had Guinness flew him in to Ireland to speak to the Guinness company and to bring some of his people along and do his book was called Top Performer. And he talked about how his days on the street in street theater at the Renaissance Festival was really the stuff that gave him early on in life the confidence in work, the confidence in management, the confidence in, and he did very well for himself as an author, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, and he really puts that into the camp of the festival. And same here. I before I did festival, I would never have dreamt of doing radio, although I started doing radio during festival. Trying to talk and maintain. You think I talk a mile a minute? I developed that because you can't have dead air when you're doing radio. 4 seconds of dead air turns into a half a minute is what the audience hears. Oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so you always have to be moving. You have to talk. And my ability to talk in business, on radio, it doesn't matter what it is. I present myself the same way you see here. If I meet somebody new, where was I? I was at the things like where somebody's introducing me in a it might have been at the library or something. And I remember Jason Hawes used to say to me, Jason, you know him. He used to say to me, God damn it, Scotty, why do you talk so loud? I said, sorry, that's just the way I am. And it's not that I can't be quiet. And
you naturally project.
I naturally project. It's from the diaphragm.
Right.
And
that's you bring up a really good point in talking about how doing the gentleman you mentioned earlier doing the street theater and that giving him confidence in a lot of areas. Your confidence in just slipping over to radio, things like that. Stage work or even street theater work. It does a lot for that. And I think that I used to do theater. I started theater in high school, and that was a confidence boost.
Yes.
You go out onto the stage, the house lights are down, you can't really see anyone except for maybe a few in the front row.
Yeah, just a few flashes of faces.
Right. But you can under the spots, you can kind of slip into something, that's not the nervousness and carry on. And the more you do that, the easier that becomes. The easier it is to talk in front of people.
When we were out on the street at festival, the Renaissance Festival, unless you have a stage show, which is all choreographed and scripted, and there's some ad-libbing, obviously. Our stage show, we ad-libbed an awful lot, but we were scripted. We started, like I said, in January, rehearsing for August. And everything was scripted, but we had our moments. But if you're not doing a stage show and you're a character out there, your job with the festival is to be the village where people are visiting for this festival. And so you're wandering around, and this just happens to be whatever day you're there, the day that the royal entourage is visiting our town.
Yep.
And so we've got the king and the queen, and we've got the royal guard. We had at one point 20 guys in the royal guard, all dressed like beef eaters with the big halberd axes and the swords and all that. And it was fantastic.
I tell you what,
when I started as royal guard, and when I graduated, quote unquote, out of that was when I became the right-hand man to the prince. And believe me, there were politics even out there in theater. It was like the guy who played the prince wanted me to be officially part of the royal court.
They
There were people in the royal court that were like, well, he said we don't have room for another royal. Who made him a duke? How can he be a duke? He hasn't even been an earl yet. And it's like,
well, the introduction of character.
It's a character.
And the sad thing is and you see this within communities that people are passionate about something. I mean, you see it not only in theater, but you see it in the car scene within classic car scenes, car clubs. You see it in even like in the rockabilly scene. even though everybody's pretty chill in that, there's still some people who it's like you're almost taking it a little too seriously. And
yes.
I mean, going to the theatrical aspect of it, the acting part of it. I mean, I remember my first show that I did was The Man Who Came to Dinner. Not Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, different story. The Man Who Came to Dinner, and I was a freshman, and I landed a leading role. And the animosity amongst seniors in that
Why
show.
does he get a leading role and I don't?
Right.
Yeah.
And the director's like, because he fits the character and he can do the character.
That's it.
And one of the things I think helped me a lot in theater later on, it probably helped me in a lot of ways in terms of putting on a character. You know, in theater, it's a little different. You know, you put on the character, unless you're a total method actor, you know, you put on a character, you carry the mantle of that character for the production that night, you know, and then you hang it up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
I don't go home and go, my lady, my wife, do, I beseech thee, in sooth, bring me a sandwich.
Right.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
We don't do that at home. We do that for fun sometimes,
but
we don't live it. Yeah.
Another thing that helped me in terms of keeping a character, wearing the mantle of a character for long periods of time, which actually served me well in the Army. Because getting out in front of troops, I could, you muster up, like, you know, being a former warrant officer, typically the track is like most of your tech warrants are all prior enlisted guys, and they've got, you know, 8 to 12 years of doing that gig. I was a street seat dude because I was originally going into flight school, and so I didn't have any of that. But through observation, through my own knowledge and things like that, I could put on a character. And one of the things that helped me with that, I LARPed for many years. And so we would go out for like an entire weekend, and you had to stay in character the entire weekend. It wasn't like the funny LARPing things you see in, like, was it Big Daddy and like other things where it's just, you know, a group of people out on the quad at a school hitting each other with, you know, foam swords.
Right.
Like, you actually had to immerse yourself in the character. There was tons of makeup. There were tons of costume pieces. You had to know and understand your character's backstory, your lineage, like all these things. And all of that factored into stuff that was going on that the game masters, because they would run around, the game staff would run around and marshal everything. You know, they would call you on it if you were getting out of character. And so you had to know these things. And that helped me in terms of being able to put on that mantle of somebody who was a little more grizzled, a little more old, you know, had a little bit more experience. I may have had the knowledge, I didn't necessarily have the experience, but I could walk in, not with the bravado, but with the confidence of, and, you know, that, and then all of that helped me later on when I got back into theater in the last few years of my army years. But, you know, it does a lot. And I wish more kids would get out and do theater. I've tried to encourage my own kids to do theater. My youngest does theater, but does the tech side of it. That's where they gravitated towards. And you know,
I did tech too, but you know, I went from tech obviously into doing, you know, the acting part.
Right.
So
it's a huge confidence builder. I think
it is.
I think it's one of those things. If you have low confidence, go out for a theater production, like a small local theater.
Yes.
They're not looking for Broadway quality. Half the time they're just looking for players. You know, I mean,
get on the stage, get the feel for it, and if you're lack confident, that's what I tell my own son, because he's at stage and he's very quiet. It's like, his son, you know, son, go out to the festival, and he loves doing it. And he starts to. Now he's very open with his friends. Don't get me wrong, you know.
Right, but that's a safe environment when you're with your friends.
Gain some confidence. Go out there and because doing theater, I think that's what street theater, as I was hinting at, and which you kind of segued into, was doing that street theater was
Mhm.
what really kind of got us all into, or got me into, being able to have confidence in other settings.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It helped me. It helped me not only early on in my Army career with, trying to carry a little bit more of that, you know, old timer swagger
Yes.
and confidence, but it also helped me when I was instructing,
Yes.
because, I'm not just up at the front of formation. Everybody has to listen to the, commands that I give out or the announcements I give out, whatever. Or in the shop where I have to, hey, here's marching orders for the day, kind of stuff. But
Yes.
when I was instructing, I was on the podium. So I'm sitting there in front of a class of anywhere from like 7 to 14 students who all have way more time in than I do. But I had knowledge and skills that I had developed. And so, through experience with certain systems and whatnot, so I could get up there and I could confidently talk
Yeah. Yeah.
about what was going on.
And you know what that always did for me was, by developing my back character. But there were times I got out on, well, I can't think of any time I was really nervous going out on stage, or going out when I did Shakespeare. I was nervous in my college days.
well,
I
and
got a
that's
little,
understandable
I didn't get stage fright.
if you're not intimately familiar with Shakespeare.
Right. But you know what? People look at Shakespeare and they go, "Oh, it's so hard to understand." If you ever acted it and had to interpret the part, then then Shakespeare was something you could, like, people would not understand lines like, well, I played Sir Adriano di Armado in Love's Labour's Lost, and he was a Spaniard that was broke. And he was a small character on the cast, but there was one point of it where he says, well, one of his closing lines was, "Well, the naked truth of it is, I have no shirt," and people didn't get the line. They didn't know what it. Well, you're wearing a shirt. What do you
Right.
mean you have no shirt?
But they don't understand the shirt off my back, like.
Yeah, the naked truth of it is, I'm broke. I
Yeah.
have no shirt, and so interpreting Shakespeare, the love scenes in Comedy of Errors,
Mhm.
which I've quoted here before. "Ah, sweet mistress, what your name is, else I know not. Nor by what wonder you do hit of mine. Less in your knowledge and your grace, you show all of earth more than earth divine. Speak, dear creature, and I shall dote. Spread o'er the silver waves thy golden hairs, and as a bed I'll take them in their lie," and so on and so on and so on. That was one of my favorite scenes when I was 19 years old doing Shakespeare, and it's still in my head.
Right.
So, and it's interpreting. So I remember we went to a Bible school and we were doing Shakespeare, and one of the lines, somebody said, "Sweet Lord Longaville." He's talking to Sir Longaville.
Yeah.
He says, "Sweet Lord Longaville." And some of the Bible thumpers were all like, "You're using minced oaths. We're going to boycott this play. You can't use the sweet Lord. That's like saying, damn." And they were like, and we're like, "No, no, 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 no. It's presentation." The guy who presented it admittedly did not present the line right. It's "Sweet Lord Longaville." The comma comes after the word "sweet," not "Sweet Lord Longaville." It's
It's
"Sweet
Lord Longaville.
Lord." It's like going, "Sweet, Jason. That's very cool." He goes, "Sweet Lord Longaville.
Yeah.
How are you to dote upon thy blah 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 blah." And so it's interpretation and the way things are said.
Right.
So
Which you have to understand context. You have to understand,
right.
at least at a rudimentary level,
Yeah.
yeah, the vernacular of the day, the way they spoke. There's certain cultural things
Yes.
that you have to at least. Okay, I kind of get it. Like, you can't. Otherwise, there's a lot that's going to get lost in translation. It's going to be
Yes.
lost in presentation. because someone's not interpreting the context of that sentence. He's talking.
Right.
He's talking to Lord Longville.
Yes.
You know, so it's not sweet Lord
Sweet
Longville. What are
Lord.
you
Yeah.
doing? You
But
know,
Shakespeare had plenty of other that the whole scene. My friend Amanda, who's come in here once or twice
yeah,
over the year, um, um, we did a Taming of the Shrew bit out
Hmm.
at festival. Only we took lines from Taming of the Shrew. I wasn't Petruchio, and she wasn't Catherine
Yeah,
or Kate, but we were our characters, and we did this Taming of the Shrew bit as we wandered the streets, and we drew audiences. And she'd always slap me on the butt with her wooden spoon, or she'd be in my face, and I'd be wooing her the whole time. And
right.
there was that series of lines from it's right out of the play Shakespeare,
Yeah,
and something about being waspish.
yeah,
Either I said, "Oh, you're being waspish," and she says, "I'll show you my stinger. I'm a wasp," something like that. And I'll say, "Ah, but where does the wasp carry her stinger? In her, and it's in her ass." And you have to do the gesture, but he used a different word, and I can't remember what it was. Um, oh, if thou dost sting me with thy stinger, then it's basically the entendre was ass. It was all about getting a piece, and
right.
and she was resisting that, and he was taking everything she said, turning it into a Shakespearean entendre, and so the
Yeah.
whole scene was entendre and very highly sexually charged. And
But if you don't know that,
if you don't know that,
it
yep,
just looks like this argument that's going back and forth between two people.
exactly.
That's
By the way, this is a photo I just happened to call up here. This is back in 2005. This is the summer I started dating Rainey. That's me with the king. He used to be the prince out there for like 16 years. He was a gorgeous, speaking as a gorgeous guy with a great body. He was a weightlifter and all of that. And he was the ne'er-do-well, womanizing, charming but stupid prince,
yeah.
Prince Philip. And I was supposed to be his wrangler that would walk around with him to keep him out of trouble. And we had the royal guard would accompany us everywhere. We'd have 4 members of the royal guard that would walk around with us, and
Right.
so we do our bits on the street. And then he graduated up to the king, and he changed his whole shtick. He became the king, and then I was the king's man. And this was at one of the shows we were doing. So that was my old friend John as the king, and I was Edmund Scroop, the Duke of Abergavenny, Wales, master of horse.
Right.
And
Oh.
so that was a pretty cool bit. But that's just showing the
Well, and it also, that's when
age.
going back to your bit with that gal.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, I'm opening my
Yeah.
gate. My neighbor got carjacked in our driveway
Oh,
on
nice.
Thursday at
Right in the
gunpoint.
driveway. Nothing like keeping it at home.
Right? Yeah, it was very interesting, very very
I'll bet.
unusual for this area of town. But the entendres,
Yes.
that's been something that we have been doing forever.
Yes.
Since people could speak.
Yes.
And it's interesting. You talk about how oh, this is a very sexually charged scene and all this, and if
Mm-hmm.
you don't know the entendres, you're not getting it. You're just seeing this
That's it. Yeah.
exchange. But like, go back and listen to music from the late 30s,
Yes.
even up to date. But go back that far, and the amount of double entendre that are floated across in lyrics and situations that are presented via the
Yes.
lyrics. it's funny because, you have, you know, older folk, if you will,
Yes.
who, these people and their horrible
Oh
language and
yeah.
all this stuff and this, rap music and this, that, and the other thing and yada, yada. And, complaining about, what was it? The WAP song. Uh,
Yes.
it's like, we've been talking about this stuff since
Yeah.
the dawn of time. And we've been
Yes.
doing it in song and regular conversation, theater, speeches, whatever. Um, the only difference between then and today is that we weren't as obvious about it.
Right.
It was all, it's all an entendre. And so it wasn't as in your face. And it's funny that there's this disconnect, right?
Yes.
Where people don't realize that, or they don't want to see it, or things like that, and they get spun up about things that are a little bit more obvious.
Yes.
And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Have you like the movie Grease? Well, yeah. Who doesn't like Grease? Have you ever listened to Grease Lightning and actually paid attention to the lyrics?
And paid attention
I
to
mean,
what they're saying.
come on. It's a real pussy wagon.
Yep.
The car's a dream. The chicks will cream. They don't say scream. They say cream. And, and, but that's the thing is people mishear the lyrics, or because it's just fun, kind of catchy too, they're like, well, yeah, okay. It's like, no, that stuff's there. And it's interesting. It's interesting to see how
I don't know if
we
you can
react to
see
things.
this. I don't know if you can see this being as you're outside.
Oh yeah, no, I can see
put
it.
up a picture. That is Amanda and I doing the Taming of the Shrew back in 2005. I want to say it was 2004 to 2005.
Yeah.
And she actually knocked me on my ass in that scene. And we had a crowd of people all the way around us, and the photographer was out in the crowd and took this shot of, there's a whole line of shots from this scene.
Yeah.
And she kind of knocked me on my ass. And then she came close, and I grabbed her skirt, and she tried to hit me off, and I grabbed her hand, and was going to pull myself up, and ended up pulling her on the ground with me. And it was a big scene, and it was funny as hell. But here she's yelling at me. We're doing that. Where is thy stinger? And she says, I'll sting thee. And she's pointing her wooden spoon at me.
I was going to say that spoon.
Yeah, that's a spoon. It's sideways.
Look, it's not that serious because it's a spoon. It's got to be playful. All right.
Yeah.
Because if it was chocolate, you'd know you'd be in real trouble.
Yeah.
If it was a sandal, you're a dead man.
Truth. So I have one more picture here of a man. Well, no, I got 20 of them, but I'm not going to show them. I'm going to show you one more picture. We were out on the green in front of Bad Manor, which is the place when we do the Halloween show where we go there, and there's the big feast of Phantom's Feast. Raini and I have talked about Bad Manor. It's the big building out there. But this was, and I'm sorry that these are all low resolution pictures, mostly because they were taken and then made 20 years ago for the internet, and they were all saved. I hate to say, they were all saved at 72 DPI at smaller sizes for the internet back then. And so they're all just a little lower resolution. But Amanda and I, we went out on the green in front of all these thousands of people milling around you, and we're just walking and arm in arm, and then we'd start arguing and the whole Taming of the Shrew thing. And this is where this isn't the actual shot of where I picked her up, but this is as I am grabbing her by the arm, because she's doing her anger with me as Kate. I grab her by the arm, and I spin her around, and I throw her up over my shoulder, and I walk off with her. And while I've got her on my shoulder, she is slapping me on the ass with her fucking wooden spoon. And I say to her, I say, Mandy, that hurts. And she would just look at me. There was one time I had her up, was it on my shoulder? No, I'd set her down on a bench. And so she's standing over me. And she leans over like she's going to kiss me. And then she takes a bite. She bites into my shirt collar and doublet. But she got skin, man. And I go, skin. And she's got the fabric in her teeth. And her eyes do this at me. She goes, and she's biting me. And so my big joke with her was, I said, yes, I will bear to the grave the scars from that season. So I still have welts, I told her.
Right.
But, this is the, let's see if I've got it in here now, and I can show you. Maybe I have it, maybe I don't. There it is. This particular picture, and it's low resolution, so sorry, folks, the resolution is not what it could be.
Yeah.
But this is Amanda and I then out on the green, just as I grabbed her by the arm, spun her around, and threw her up over my shoulder. And so she would beat me with that wooden spoon as we were doing it, and we're delivering our lines while we're doing it. So
Right.
those were the good old days, man.
There you go.
That picture is that is 20 years old. That's 2004, I believe. No, that's 2005. So that's 19 years old. So,
Yeah. Well, I need to back on out because I got some stuff I got to take care of. But I just wanted to hop in.
right on. It's good to talk to you.
It's good talking with you.
About street theater.
Yep.
That was
Take
fun.
care, everybody.
See you later, JP. All right, everybody. And so there you go. A little bit of street theater talk and what it does for you. You know, if you lack confidence, if you lack the ability to speak in front of people, or you don't have any confidence doing that, go join a play. Just be a bit player in a play. And that's going, now, not every personality is built for it, granted. But you do that kind of thing. Rudy Dog says here, it's definitely a confidence builder, because you can go out there and be a totally complete different person than what you really are. And you can fill social needs and experiences. That's very true. That's what our street theater was. And even now, when you go to work, what do we call? Carr did his group, and his book was called Top Performer. When you go into work and you don't feel like being there, what do you have to be? A performer. You bring, we've talked about before, the Pike Place Fish Market started that the fish philosophy of business, and the being there, making somebody's day, bring your own attitude, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's what theater and street theater did for us. Being there, you're there in the moment. You don't want to be at work today. You know, feel like doing what they make you do, whether it's from being a clerk at a coffee shop to a executive. If you don't want to be there, there's days you have to be there, and you have to act. Sometimes. What do you do when you go into work and you don't want to be there? Just plain old regular job like most Americans have. When I remember last summer when I worked at Quick Trip for a couple of months, did I want to be at Quick Trip? Fuck no. But I put on the performance of, I'm bringing my own attitude, and I'm being there, and I'm making people's day as best I can. And so when I was at Quick Trip, this was my attitude when I worked there all day, every day. I talked like this. Hey, good morning. How you doing? How you doing? And I do the same thing with the customers. And with very rare exception, the only time it wasn't like that is if we got so slammed, we're just doing one after another, you know, lined up at the, you could joke around only so much. Hey, I always said, hey, how you doing? And, you know, you throw quips in when you can, but you do that with your fellow workers. You do that with the manager. Here's I maybe this is a secret we've already talked about, and maybe it's something you do or do not already incorporate. But the big secret for most of the managers I ever worked under, which in the last 30 years, very few, because I worked for myself most of that time, 20 years. But the big secret was, you need me more than I need you, but I'm giving you my all. I'll give you everything I got. There wasn't a manager that scared me or made me nervous, because if they wanted to fire me or terminate my employee because I wasn't doing the job, it usually wasn't because I wasn't doing the job. But if I ever got in trouble for anything, hypothetically, for something I may have done that I shouldn't have done, or unwittingly made a mistake, oh, you're going to get yelled at today, Scotty. I said, there's nothing to yell at me for. If I made a mistake, I made a mistake. I'll own it and I'll do what I can to fix it. It's usually paperwork, or, you didn't mop the floor during your quiet time last night while you're doing the overnight shift. It's like, well, okay, well, I'll hit that tomorrow. But my attitude was, I'm going to be there whether I like the job or not. Now, I had my private thoughts. I've talked to you about this before. I'd be stocking eggs from the backside of the cooler into the cooler for customers to get milk, eggs, cheese, pop, soda pop, drinks. I'm stocking that stuff and I'm freezing my ass off in there. And I'm thinking, so this is the culmination of all my education. This is the culmination of years of doing this and that, creative director, executive work at ad agencies, and minor executive. If you're creative director, you're considered an executive in an agency. So the culmination of a lifetime career, 40 years of this, and I'm stocking eggs and butter in a freezer to make $20 an hour. It just seemed, of course, in my head, it was one of, fuck this. I don't want to do this. But outwardly, what was the performance part? Hey, I'm happy to be here. How are you doing today? Question isn't how am I doing? It's how are you doing? And I wasn't obnoxious with it. I was just gregarious. I was upbeat, and always upbeat. And I always tried to make someone's day. And I always brought my own attitude. That's the only way you're going to survive, especially if you're doing something you don't want to do, but you got to do it anyway to survive. What are you going to do? Mope all the time? Be the down guy all the time? No, you go there and you make the best with what you got. And you make your day. You make other people's day. You bring your attitude and you be there. You're in the moment. That's what I did. So, yeah, it's hard to think of vernacular while describing vernacular. That's true, Elderberry. I haven't seen Hamilton, Jeremy. I'd like to. I had heard things about it that I didn't like, and so I wasn't going to watch it. I'm not going to waste my time or money. But the more I see things about it, the more I say, well, I wouldn't mind seeing that. What are people so up in arms about? Probably the little bit of rewriting of history, or, Hamilton wasn't a black guy. But they don't care. It's like saying, it's like watching, I want to see that movie, the new version of Shakespeare's Macbeth, with Denzel Washington playing the Scottish king, because I think he probably did a fantastic job. So, and Jeremy, by the way, his show's coming back. I had that highlighted, and Jason was talking. The show is coming back within 2 weeks, Scotty. Fantastic, Jeremy. Jeremy, are you talking to Rocky or Nancy Planetta by any chance? Is it that network? Just curious. Or are you doing it on your own? Professor Bowers says your loquacious verbosity is only exceeded by your stunning lack of good looks. Thank you, I think. Well, I had him when I was a kid. Professor, if you missed it. So, yeah, trouble just showed up. Here, for those of you who didn't get to see it at the old festival, that's me with the king. I was his right-hand man. I was Edmund Scroop, master of the king's horse. And tell me we didn't have entendres about that one. And then, of course, Taming of the Shrew bit we did on the street. It was a bastardization of the Taming of the Shrew that Amanda and I did on the streets out there, street theater, wandered around and made our own lines fit our characters and did bits on the street. And this was another shot of that. So way back, that's 20 years ago. Eesh. Both of these, all of these are 20 years ago. So there you go. And that was the year, by the way, where I met Raini this summer, that season at the festival. So, and then here's Sam this morning or last night. I took this picture of him in his new getup. So there's our festival stuff. Boom. All right. Professor Bauer heeds the call. It is now 10:09, folks. Where's your dog? So, we might be getting a new dog. Raini wants to take on a foster dog, another dog like Lucifer, named Lillian. So we'll see. That dog's coming into the family soon. It's a foster with possibly owning, but until that time comes, all we have to do is make sure she's fed and taken care of. And they'll cover the medical bills and stuff like that if any arise, shots and all of that. So then that's okay. So let's see what else. I had more serious stuff I wanted us to cover this morning and talk about, and we'll do some of that. I don't think there's any reason we can't talk about politics a little bit. You know why? Because we're surrounded by them right now for some time to come. Another 3 months to go. Let's see, what is it? August to September, October, November. Less than 3 months till Election Day. And I'll be very happy when Election Day takes place, as I am every year. So how are you feeling about what's going on with the campaigning out there? The presentation from both sides. Now, it seems that Trump was the absolute shoe-in when Biden was running. The absolute, what did everybody was saying the day that he got shot? Well, Trump just won the election. Well, what has the left done now? They saw that they were losing with who they had running. So, yeah, right, Professor Bauer? Stock up on your popcorn and beer. The DNC convention this week will be epic. This is true. So, so what had happened? What we all know, they forced Biden out, and of course they all deny that. Pelosi denies it. They all deny it. But guess who? Joe, in his ramblings, keeps revealing that that's exactly what happened. He was forced out. And why? Not for his health, not because, she cares about him and loves him so much, she says in public. They didn't push him out for that. They pushed him out because they knew he couldn't win. And of course, well, that's the point of running for president or any office, is to win the office. Well, the Democrats didn't want to lose that power seat, and they still don't. So what have they done? They put somebody in, the vice president in, as the new candidate without her winning so much as a single primary vote. We all know this already. The primary votes, 14 million primary votes went to Biden. It was unanimous, but only 14 million people voted in the primaries for him. That's a far cry from the 86 million that voted for him last election. You got 14 million votes in the primary and no resistance. And and he got all their delegates, the Democrat delegates. And then what happens? He steps down. All his delegates go to Kamala Harris. But did she get a single primary vote? No. Here they are constantly harping about save democracy from the MAGA people, save democracy, save democracy. But they, as usual, the left tends to, all the things they accuse the right of doing are what they are themselves doing. So they just trounced the Democratic vote to run Kamala Harris. And this is obvious and it's being said, but it's not being preached out there. There's very few news outlets that will do that. Most of your news outlets are in support of getting Kamala Harris in office, maintaining the Democrat power, because they want to see, they have a core philosophy of wanting to see the country turn more social, turn more socialist, some of them communist even. I don't want to get into it because I'm not going, oh, those commie pinko bastards. I'm not saying that. I'm saying their philosophies are based in Marxism, which is the basis for communism, socialism. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, the Kamala's now running mate, said one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. No, that is not what socialism is, Tim Walz. He's trying to water it down. For what reason? Does he knowingly do that, or is he just a dope? No, socialism is not the same as neighborliness. So, looking at this, what has the press done? The press has supported Kamala Harris. They want to see her win, and they have degraded Donald Trump. So have you noticed you haven't seen quite as much of Trump? That's why he's calling his own news conferences and so on. Because since the assassination attempt, everybody thought that's it, election's over for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then what happened? Kamala gets in, and that's the only talk. Nobody in the media talks about anything that is negative about her, but everything about Trump is negative. It's interesting. Just look at the headlines, and you'll find out. Trump flags all over the Kenny Chesney concert, says Randall Flagg. That's cool. Yeah, and I think that there is a bigger movement than the press lets on for Trump. So it's going to be an interesting election. Right now, the strategy they've got in place, they've had 3 weeks of the press and the media and everybody pushing Kamala Harris, and everybody is so duped by the picture. It's all about joy. You know what? I saw one person say, you can keep your joy. I just want to make sure I can pay my bills and the financial situation of the United States is fixed. I want the economy fixed. And which is not what she's doing. And did you notice that everything, if you watched, she gave a speech on finally presenting her platform, her economic platform. And it's all so Marxist that it makes your head spin if you know what you're looking for. When the one real obvious one, she wants to put price freezes on food. So food won't get more expensive. She's not fixing the economy. She's making it so that people maybe can afford the food. That's great on the surface, but that's the frosting on the cake. Why is the food so expensive? What's the cake? What's the meat of the cake? It has nothing to do with what the consumer is paying. It has what's to do with the cost of creating that food, the cost of shipping that food, the cost of stocking that food. They say the average grocery store makes about a 2 to 5% profit on food. And that's getting slimmer and slimmer. Why do you think the cost of food's going up? Because the grocery store has to be able to pay their employees. Well, now Kamala Harris also wants to raise the minimum wage again for people who work in places like grocery stores. She makes all these promises, but the big question you've got to keep asking yourself is, who is paying for it? That's the tough part. So that's the big question that has to be asked. So I've got some things up here that I want to talk about. And it has to do with there's a couple of things you have to ask yourself some questions every time you hear Kamala speak. You've got to keep asking yourself questions. Now, the Democratic convention coming up this week, get yourselves prepared for Olympic level political gymnastics. If anybody will win the gold in gymnastics, it's going to be the Democrat Party at their convention. Now, all conventions are meant to be hoorah, sis boom ba for my team. I get that. The last Democratic National Convention that was held in Chicago was 56 years ago. And in 1968, I actually remember it, even though I wasn't voting, wasn't into politics. Do you remember Shirley Chisholm? She was a black woman running for president. Now, she did not get her party's endorsement, but I believe it was in 68, wasn't it? Who got the endorsement, the Democratic endorsement? Who was elected? Who ran against Nixon? McGovern? And not McGovern, the other guy, the racist guy, the socialist racist guy down in, I can't remember his name. You'll find it and you'll put it up in there. Yeah, mental fornication, did I just see? Yes. It's more like the mental fornication gymnastics, all gold performances coming. Yeah, exactly. Now, am I saying this just because I support Trump? Am I saying this just because I'm against Kamala Harris? No, I'm saying this because all you got to do is look and you'll see. In 1968, there was a deeply split Democratic Party 56 years ago. And they found their convention surrounded by thousands of militant anti-Vietnam War demonstrations that would later be called a police riot exploded. There was tear gas drifted from Grant Park into the convention center. The American people watched what was essentially a civil war within the Democratic Party on live television. Richard Nixon, the Republican presidential nominee, found himself much closer to the presidency at the end of that convention. And he was the Republican. Now, this year, Harris and Walz, they're hoping for a much quieter, more successful convention. Their issue-less theme has been captured in recent articles about the so-called politics of joy. Folks, are you lulled by that? The politics of joy? I can see how somebody who doesn't think about what's really going on could be lulled by the presentation they make. And the great challenge for Vice President Harris and her team is that the politics of joy will be completely tone deaf for many Americans. So according to Real Clear Politics, 65% of Americans say our country is on the wrong track. And only 25% say we're moving in the right direction. And this isn't exactly joyful, given Harris is the current vice president. She's not a new person on the scene. She's been there for what I saw a meme the other day, earlier in the week, when she keeps saying on day one, I will do this, and day one. Hey, you're on day 1189, somebody said. Why haven't you done it yet? That's something to keep in mind. And I hope that message gets out to Americans. If your family budget is squeezed by the 20% price increases under the Joe Biden-Harris administration, you're not likely feeling very joyful. Like me. It's today or yesterday. I had a conversation with my 12-year-old. She needed to go get something for her hair. And I said, sure, let's go. And I said, I'll pay for that. And I bought her thing, and she said, well, it's $10. Okay, well, we got there, and she bought 2 bottles, and it was $13. So we spent $26 on her hair stuff. And it's hair stuff because she wanted to strip out the black dye, go back to her normal color. Okay, so $26. And then we went to, what did we spend the other? That was 26, and there was another 20 I spent on her that day. I can't remember what it was now. I got her a Starbucks drink, stuff like that was damn near $20. But, at the end of the day, I said, we're driving home. And I said, do you realize, because she was asking me something, we just spent $46 on hair stuff and a drink. There had to be something else in there. I can't think of what it was, but it was $46. And I said, no, we can't go stop at this store and buy this. She said, hey, can we stop at so? And I said, no, we can't. I said, I'm not out of money, but I can't spend all my money on this stuff. Oh, I'm looking at RFK, then Goldwater, then all hell broke loose in the 68. Yeah, it's when Robert F. Kennedy Sr. was killed, assassinated in 68 after the conventions. So let's see. So let me carry on with this thought that at virtually every level, the practical, real-life results of Harris and Walz's politics of joy are getting Americans kind of pissed off and killing their joy. Why do you think they're rewriting her? Why do you think she's changing so many positions to try to reflect being more centrist? When she was voted as the most liberal socialist person ever as a vice president. Or no, it was when she was in the Senate. So if you have no hope of buying a home because Biden-Harris politics have made it too expensive, you have no joy. If your loved one was killed in the disastrous collapse in Afghanistan, you don't feel joyful. If your community is overrun with illegal immigrants allowed in under the Biden-Harris open border policy, you don't likely have a great sense of joy. If you realize, because nobody's reporting on this, very few are, conservative outlets are, that did you know that right now the Democrats, the left, are pushing for fast-tracking immigration to citizenship, meaning the 19 million immigrants that came in, they're fast-tracking as many of them as they can to now, rather than the 2 years it normally takes thereabouts to become a citizen, they're fast-tracking them so that in months they can be citizens and they can vote. They're counting on a lot of those people voting left. I don't think there's a lot of immigrants that are necessarily leftists. But if you're worried about the threat to Israel's survival and the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses and in America and in the Democratic Party, you don't have any joy. I don't know why so many Jewish people support the left anymore. If you consider Walz's failure to bring in the National Guard during the Minnesota riots in 2020, the BLM riots, or Harris's effort to help bail out those rioters that burned down 150 businesses in my old neighborhood in Minneapolis, you're likely not very joyful. If you're paying attention to the Democrats' ticket, that ticket's clear and anti-police, pro-criminal records, despite what they're saying today, you don't have any joy. If you reject men competing in women's sports, maybe not a huge issue because there's tampons in all the bathrooms in my house, but boys and girls use the bathrooms, but tampons in middle school, boys' restrooms, parents being told they can't stop their children from having gender change operations, or you could be brought up on charges. So it's done in secret. You have no joy. At virtually every level, the practical, real-life results of Harrison Walz's politics of joy are angering Americans and killing their joy. The Democrats' reaction will be to develop a series of phony promises and an agenda which bears no resemblance to their combined past behaviors or what they actually intend to do if given power. This is their strategy. Which version of Kamala Harris do you believe? the old San Francisco radical who has always been for Green New Deal against fracking, or the new vote-hungry candidate eager to say whatever you need to get you to vote for her. As you hear each new false promise and nice-sounding agenda item, you should ask yourself these two simple questions. One, why haven't they implemented these over the last 4 years? That's the new promises that are coming out, the change, the redirection, the reanimation of Kamala Harris. Why aren't you seeing when she talks about what she's doing, like it started really becoming obvious when she can have the same idea. There's nothing wrong with that, but copycatted Trump, who's been saying for over 2 months that he's going to cut the tax on tips for service people, service-oriented jobs. My mom was a waitress. I remember when that started. I was at home. It was during the Carter administration. They implemented a tax on tips. Might even been under the Reagan administration. The Congress implemented that tax. And my mom was pissed off. She says, I make $2.35 an hour. That was, you're talking back in the late 70s, early 1980s. $2.35 an hour. She says, I live off my tips, not off my wage. And there were some nights she'd come home with $50 to $100 in tips. She worked at a small bar and restaurant in in Northeast Minneapolis. And so that's been there for over about 40 years. And Trump said, we're going to cut that tax to help people. Well, Kamala Harris then came out with the same thing just a week ago. And so this is part of the process that they are implementing in the Democrat Party to try to make her more appealing. So the two questions: why haven't they implemented this over the last 4 years? She's been the vice president. And people say, well, she was only the vice president. It was Joe Biden. What did Karine Jean-Pierre tell us in a news conference or her press briefing this last week when asked the question about that was really right around this topic, Kamala Harris being there? And she said, well, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, she said, have always been together. Somebody asked her the question, why is she distancing herself from Biden? I think was the question. And she says, she's upholding his policy. She was there with him side by side in everything that has happened over the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years. But then out of the other side of the mouth, they're saying that, well, she didn't have the power to implement it. She was there making policy with Biden. So what she is now fighting against, quote unquote, is what she implemented. So why hasn't she done the dropping the tax for tips over the last 4 years? Why hasn't she fixed the border over the last 4 years? If you listen to the spin from Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, it's because the Republicans blocked it. Joe Biden was fixing the border, and they blocked every legislative attempt. No, they didn't. They blocked the legislation because the legislation was crap. They might have had a couple of good items in there that the Republicans agreed with. Why did they not vote for it? Because it was loaded with other crap. Clean bill, the shut down the border and vet thing, and it didn't happen. But you know why they did that? So they could have an item during the election that they could say the Republicans voted against fixing the border. No, they didn't. They voted against your lame your lame legislation is what they voted against. So why haven't they implemented these things over the last 4 years? That's your first question. Your second one is, why should we believe they'll do it now? Because they said they'd do it? I don't think so. Those two questions are going to reveal how phony and staged the entire Democratic National Convention is going to be this week. So a good example is Harris's brand new policy on fracking. She's always said she opposed fracking. Now she needs to carry Pennsylvania. If you don't win Pennsylvania, you're probably not going to win the election, either party. She needs to carry Pennsylvania, which has two of the four largest natural gas fields in the world. And she suddenly softened her position on fracking. So which Harris do you believe? The old San Francisco radical, who's always been for the Green New Deal, eliminating fracking? Or do you believe the new vote-hungry candidate eager to say whatever you need to hear to get your vote? And then you got to ask yourself maybe a third question. Does she really believe anything she's saying? Because she couldn't answer any questions until they wrote her policy for her. So the most interesting political gymnastics are going to be on Israel and Hamas. Having rejected Pennsylvania's governor, Josh Shapiro, who was supposedly the shoo-in for Kamala's vice president, but he's Jewish and he's pro-Israel. He even joined the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, as an American years ago. But they turned him down. Why? Because he was too pro-Jewish. And Harris is going to have to walk a really narrow line now. And by the way, if you don't know what fracking is, it's a hydraulic fracturing. Or fracking. It's a well is an oil well stimulation technique that uses high pressure fluids to crack bedrock formations and extract natural gas and oil from the shale and the other tight rock formations. So the process involves drilling a long vertical or angled well, inserting steel pipes called casings into the well, filling the space between the rock and casing with cement, and pumping a fracking fluid into the well at high pressure. That's what fracking is. And they were banning that with the new Green Deal. And, of course, Kamala Harris. It's a big thing on pronouncing her name. Now I don't even know which way you're supposed to pronounce it, according to her. That's what fracking is, if you didn't know that, by the way. So when you start looking at this, now we've got some viewers that are dropping off. You've got other things to do. If the political talk is unpalatable for you, I'm not trying to play politics. I'm trying to get you to look at what they're doing with this candidate. She is as bad as Joe Biden. If you didn't like the Biden administration, she was half of it. So Jeremy says, I have been repeatedly asked, when you'd start the talk show. Yes. Mexican nationals over 35 are almost all conservatives. Did you know that? It might be a good thing for the right. But the point is, the principle, you don't fast track immigration, citizenship for an election. But that's what's behind it. They want to fast track it, get them all driver's license, get them all registered to vote, quote unquote. Why would you want 19 million people that have come into the country newly? That wasn't all in this last year, but look at the millions of people that have come in just in the last year. Why would you want them all voting in our national elections already? They're not even citizens yet. And I think even after you become a citizen, when you become a citizen, you should be allowed constitutionally to vote. That's why there's a lengthy process. I think you need to be here. You need to learn the language of the country, even though we don't have a legislated national language. You have to not just learn the language, you have to sink into the society. You have to be part of the melting pot of America. That's like right now, I can't believe it. Ilhan Omar, part of the squad, won her primary again in Minneapolis. Why? There's a huge The largest population of Somalis outside of Somalia is in Minneapolis. So what have you got? You got a whole community there that is voting her in because she's Somali. So they've got a voting block. That was something we were talking about back in the the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. Rainey and I were first together. I remember the house we were in, and we were doing radio shows, and we were talking about how the different kinds of jihad there is. And if Sarah was here, I'd have her talk about this or address this a little bit. But there's the jihad that is outright war. They wage war on you. It's bloody jihad, if you will. Then there is jihad, which is a slower jihad. I don't remember what it's called by use of the word, but it is a jihad, an Islamic jihad that is, in a sense, breeding in. It takes a generation to do. You breed in your voting block, you breed it, pretty soon. What do you got in Minneapolis? 30 years of immigration and building that community. Same as in Dearborn, Michigan, which is decades old. Arabic peoples. Why are those voting blocks so strong? Because it's all people that support their candidates, which is democratic. But this is what's happening if we're not paying attention. So, moving on here with this. This is the let's see if I can get to where I was here. Hold on. About the convention this week. At virtually every level, the practical, real-life results of Harris Wall's politics of joy are angering Americans and killing their joy. But you don't see that in the press or the media, do you? You're not seeing that. They're not asking people those questions. It's about this much. And so the Harris price control proposal, that risks validating communist labeling. Her price controls. Did you know this? Have you seen this? Did you hear what she said the other day? Her price control proposal risks validating a communist label put on her proposal. And a liberal Washington Post columnist is the one who said that. Catherine Rampell wrote that price controls might actually raise prices, not lower them. Kamala Harris the other day, in her economic speech, said she was going to put price controls to stop the corporations from gouging America. What are they doing? They're playing into America. Oh, it's the big corporations gouging you. No, it's the economy that's raising prices. Corporations have to raise them to stay in existence. Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell criticized Vice President Harris's proposal to implement federal price controls in order to stop price gouging on groceries. And it's really hard to exaggerate just how bad this policy really is. It's all but in all but name, a sweeping set of government-enforced price controls across every industry, not only food. Supply and demand would no longer determine prices or profit levels. Far-off Washington bureaucrats would determine the price levels. The FTC would be able to tell, say, Kroger's, if you got a Kroger in your neighborhood, or Cub Foods here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, that the acceptable price that they can charge for milk. The government will tell them, the FTC, here's what you can charge for milk. even if you have to pay more for it because the economy sucks and it's killing farmers. The Harris campaign announced on Wednesday of this week that she would institute a federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries. And as president, in an attempt to stop big corporations from taking advantage of consumers. Did you know that? Did you hear that? Were you interested enough in your own country to find out what's going on? Oh, guilt trip, a guilt tripper would say. Playing off of Greg Gutfeld a little bit there. Not trying to guilt you, but were you interested enough with what's going on to know what they're saying? This is what she's saying. At best, this would lead to shortages, black markets, hoarding, among other distortions that have seen previous times countries tried to limit price growth by fiat. There's a reason narrower price gouging laws that exist in some U.S. states are rarely invoked. And at worst, it might accidentally just raise prices. But more to the point, if your opponent claims you're a communist, maybe don't start with your economic agenda that can accurately be labeled as federal price controls. That's communism. We already have plenty of economic gibberish coming from the Republican presidential ticket. Do we really need more from the other side, too? There's all this gobbledygook coming back and forth from both sides. But I think one side is going to work to fix it, while the other side is going to work to put a Band-Aid on it to win votes that is actually going to hurt the country and people more. President Trump, if you wish, former President Trump, held a press conference in New Jersey on Thursday, just a few days ago, calling Harris's proposal a policy of communist price controls. They don't work. It leads to food shortages, rationing, hunger, and dramatically higher inflation. Now, Rampelt wrote that Harris's proposed legislation would ban companies from offering lower prices to a big customer such as Costco than to Joe's Corner Store, which means quantity discounts are in trouble because the government would be fixing the prices. Worse, it would require public companies to publish detailed internal data about costs, margins, contracts, their future pricing strategies. Posting cost and pricing plans publicly is a fantastic way for companies to collude to keep prices higher, all facilitated by the government, which is trying to control the price. The Harris campaign didn't answer questions about the specifics of the policy when she was asked. Why? Because Kamala Harris can't. She doesn't know how to respond to that. Why? Because she's not competent to be the president of the United States. This is not her plan. That gives you something. How about small business? There's an ex-Trump official who fears the fate of small businesses under a Harris administration. You can't have a vibrant economy if the small business community isn't vibrant. This was from Linda McMahon. And she's raising concerns over what the small business climate would look like under a Harris-Walz administration. Now, any of you here listening to this show, do you have a small business? I have a small business. I don't hire anybody. My business is very small. So small, I'm self-employed. How many of you have a small business or work for small businesses? McMahon said that she was afraid of what would come with a Harris and Walz ticket at the helm. And she said, let me just take you back a little bit under the Trump administration, where the small business climate was, we had lower regulations, we had lower taxes, we had the highest optimism rate, according to the NFIB, from small businesses. You know, in decades, we had more businesses starting. The economy was flourishing, and it was a wonderful place to be for a small business owner. And remember, inflation was only not as Joe Biden said several times, even after being corrected, was not 9% under Trump. It was 1.4% under Trump when he left office. It shot to 9.2% in 2 years under Biden. Now, some will say, well, that's because of COVID. No, it's because of the regulations put in place under COVID. So then under the Biden-Harris administration, we saw an increase in regulations on small businesses and an increase in taxes. Optimism levels fell. It's not just the same place. And so you can't have a vibrant economy if the small business community is not vibrant and working. And what happens if the small business community feels like, oh, that's just giving tax cuts or whatever breaks to business and corporations? No, it's giving tax breaks to the people who create business, who make business work, who make the economy flow, who hire people. So the former administration, Trump's administration, addressed the Democratic presidential candidate's proposal to implement federal price controls to stop price gouging on groceries and blamed the current administration for the economic slump. When Kamala Harris talks about corporations and gouging prices and all of that, that's not the reason for the slump in the economy. The reason is the policies that have gone under. You know, Biden-Harris. And I'm afraid of what Harris-Walz administration is going to bring with more regulation, more taxes. You would have to see if she wins what that's going to happen, and then it's too late to fix it. So that's clearly what the governor did in Minnesota. Walz, he had the highest corporate tax rate in the country. The highest. The former official also explained how it would be difficult for small businesses to operate under an administration that discourages enthusiasm and growth through measures targeting price gouging. They're afraid to grow. Why would they invest in a business? Why would there be more business innovation if that kind of damper is put on the enthusiasm for small businesses and giving them the tools to help them succeed rather than giving them the environment in which to grow? It's the president's job not to create jobs, it's the president's job to create a good economy and an economic environment for growth. You look at Harris's attempts to distance herself from the Biden administration's economic policies. And people are trying to grapple with wage growth and inflation. We shouldn't allow her to distance herself. Folks, I've got people in my own family want to vote for Kamala Harris, but they don't want to look at the issues. She's just not Trump. That's the poorest reason to vote. You're voting to send your economy and your country in a downward spiral. We shouldn't allow Kamala Harris, to distance herself from Biden. But this was the Biden-Harris administration, she argued. These are the policies that she supported in interviews that she's had over the last 3 years. You're going to hear her talk all the time about being supportive of the American worker. But how is it being supportive of the American worker if, in fact, the wages don't keep up with the price of inflation? And inflation is a result of what? The Biden-Harris policies. In this environment, workers would find it difficult to get ahead. And it will result in people taking on second jobs, third jobs, or seniors taking home to make ends meet. We have to support our small businesses. We have to support our American workers because that's the only way the economy really does grow and flourish. And by the way, did you also know that Trump proposed no tax on Social Security? Now, I get a Social Security check every month. It's not a lot. Doesn't even cover my mortgage payment. It helps. It's there. It's covers about half my mortgage payment every month, which is nice to have. But it's also taxed. So they're going to stop the taxation on that. Yeah, here you go, Roger Rabbit. I employ myself, and I. It's a huge company, all three of you. I get that. So I employ myself. And Rainey said just the other day, she said, I can't wait till we have this tattoo studio up and running. Because she wants to not do some of the extra stuff she does, like at the Dollar General store. She would rather work for me. I like having my wife under me. Actually, though, she likes being on top, so she'll be the boss. So, boy, talk about entendres. There you go, Professor Bauer. There's your entendre. So, how are you going to vote this year? 3 months. Are you going to vote because you were led to believe certain things about the Harris-Walz administration? Hey, Jeremy Jones over in YouTube. And Isana, good to see you. Anthony Productions joined over there. Good to see you guys. I hope you're still sitting in over there. So, how are you going to vote? Well, I don't like Trump. I hate Harris-Walz, so I'm going to vote for RFK. The problem is, folks, you don't have enough people to vote him into office. It really comes down to two parties. I hate to say it. It's the way our country works. It's the way the politics work. Vote your conscience, but you may vote with your conscience and vote the people you don't want right into office doing it. You've got to take a stand and make a choice. Take personalities out of it. Take the joy out of it. Take the bad texting out of it, whatever it is. Take all that out and decide which candidate is offering you, the citizen of this country, a better economy and the way to make it work without incorporating Marxist communist tactics. Ask yourself that question. Then ask yourself, with all these promises being made on the left, why they're promising to do it when they're in office, when they've already been in office for almost 4 years. It's good questions to ask yourself. So I haven't had anybody call in this morning, by the way, other than Jason. And so if you want to call in, we only got about 4 minutes left before we wrap this show. If you want to make a quick comment online, come on in. But we can't go much past 11. By the way, keep my wife and my child in mind. My wife has COVID, and my 12-year-old daughter have COVID. They both caught it in Alaska. And we noticed about a week ago that Rowan had it. And Rainey took her in on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday evening into the ER because she was crying. Her head was just pounding, her sinuses. And they said, well, let's just do the first thing. And they took a COVID test. She has COVID. So now none of us got the shot. So YouTube, they just, by the way, they just took down one of my posts, one of my shows from 3 years ago. Just got notified yesterday because I made a mention of the shot. So I'm arguing with them right now. I disputed it. And I said, if you carry on and watch beyond that 12 seconds where I mentioned it, you'll see the context. I said, we were talking about arguments being made, not making the argument. So I said, we've been through all that before. So YouTube, I am not talking about, I'm not disseminating misinformation. I'm just telling you, we didn't get the shot. And in our personal case, our antibodies were so high because we had COVID in early 2020 that we were through the ceiling for the kind of antibody. I don't know how to talk about this medically. The kind of antibodies that say you are defended bodily against COVID, we were through the roof on those and still are. I could get COVID. It's probably going to treat me differently, though. I didn't have the shot. Neither did Rainey. Neither did any of my kids. But we're all defended by our body's immune systems to a certain extent. And Rainey's got it right now. Yesterday was her first day of feeling symptoms. Torturous headache, sinus headache. I'm hoping to not get it. Rowan had it 4 or 5 days ago. She got it. But they both kind of contracted it in Alaska when they were there. And so hopefully, I don't want to get it. I don't want to be down. The last time I had it, I've had it twice. In early 2020, then 2 years ago when Rainey took Flynn to Alaska. I was down for 3 or 4 days in bed. My 2 daughters, I couldn't cook for them because I didn't want to pass it on to them. But my one daughter, it was 1 day of the really torturous bad headache. Then she was back to almost normal. She wanted me to take her to the store. Yesterday, she wanted me to take her to the store to get stuff for her hair. She's just back up to normal. Rainey, she's old like me, not as old as, but it's going to take her a couple of extra days. So, hey, Susie Q, good to see you. So keep Rainey in your thoughts and minds, energy putting out there. It's hitting her a little. It hits her a little harder than it does the 12-year-old. Why? Because she's older, an older person. She's not an old person. She's older. So it's tougher on her, sad to say. So that's where she is this morning. She's still over in bed. So anyway, so far so good. Yeah, Professor Bauer, that's a good question, by the way. It's more like the mental fornication gym is like all go. Well, that's not the one I wanted. Oh, there it is. Where's the Build Back Better hats? I don't see any of those hats being sold. Harris is a big proponent of Build Back Better. She said Bidenomics is working. Why is she distancing herself from him then? So, yeah, thanks, Susie Q. She's sick. That's it. She's just sick. So, this too will pass. It's like having a bad case of the flu along with a really severe sinus headache. So, other than that, she's doing okay. So, there you go, folks. That's Sunday. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11:01, actually. So, we're going to get out of here. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here, despite the fact that I was gone all last week and couldn't do any shows last week. I got just slammed on several work projects, several places I had to be, and as well as kids getting sick and stuff like that. It's the flu, standard virus. Yeah. I haven't had the flu for a long time. So 2 years ago was the last I had the flu. So I'm going to mimic what Susie Q says. Have a wonderful Sunday. All you guys have a wonderful Sunday. You have a good rest of your day and build yourself up for tomorrow. Getting into your work week. So all of you, thanks for being here. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Intrepid Radio program. For now, it's Sunday with Scotty and Raini, who's in bed right now. Not well. We're signing off. So all of you, live long and prosper.